Okay, we're going to do part 3 of the Metacognition Lab. Uh, a lot of you can just read through it and answer the questions. I'm going to kind of walk you through the questions just in case you want some expansion, but this one's pretty straightforward. And the premise, the scenario is that you've got this big exam that you have to come in and take. Not everybody in all my classes is doing that at all, but you're going to at some point need to prepare for a big exam. And the questions are not how do you do it, but for you to think about what the best approach is. Maybe you haven't done it a particular way, but maybe once or twice. But when you think about it, you go, oh, that worked better, or I think that would work better if I tried it. So that's kind of what we're looking for. Typically, we do this in a class, and I go through the choices and people raise their hands. And it's, the different options are pretty well distributed through most classes, although every once in a while I get a weird split. So, studying for an exam. First question, would you rather be studying by yourself, studying with a partner, studying with a group? Is that here is that we actually have a tutoring center that can actually help you set up a group and give you room to work with a group, and I may sneeze sometime in the near future. But it's a lot trickier now that you're remote. And of course, to do the remote exams, you're not supposed to be working with a partner. You're supposed to be working on your own. And I do warn people that it's not that hard for me to tell when you're working with a partner, when you're not supposed to. Second question. So you got a whole pile of stuff that you got to use, that you're going to use for your prep. So, books and notes and sources and whatever. My question is, you settle someplace. If I come in a half an hour and look at you, is your material all kind of in a neat pile still right in front of you, or have you spread it all over the place? Which is what I do. Your location is affected by that. Is that, maybe sitting at a small table and doing your work is good for you if you're the concentrated, just move stuff around the pile. But if you're a spread out person, you may be better off, studying on the floor somewhere where you can really spread your stuff out. This one's interesting. People's minds work better for them under different temperature conditions. Is that you may think that somebody working where you want to put on a coat is horrible. You go, how can you think? I'm just shivering here. But that may suit them very well. Or you're going to make jokes about saunas because they've got the fire going in there. It's cranked up and it's really, really almost sweatshop hot. But again, that works for some people. It's a small group on the two extremes, but warm and cool, way more people are more comfortable thinking, preparing with the room warm or the room cool. And then there's a whole bunch of people that don't like the room to really feel like it's got a temperature, it's kind of just neutral. But if that is something you can figure out for yourself, it could be good to set up your situation that way. In a room like this, some people are really comfortable because they like a very, very well lit environment for them to work in. Now, some people are at the opposite extreme. A lot of people are in between. Some people are at the opposite extreme where if they could light up what they're working on and have the rest of the world in complete darkness, they'd kind of like it that way. It helps them focus. But you have to think about what suits you in terms of your lights. In terms of your physical positioning, are you more comfortable sitting in a nice back chair with your stuff on a surface in front of you, or plopped in a living room chair, or lying down, or pacing? Whatever works for you is fine. I always tell my classes, the one thing you're not allowed to do, you're not allowed to be one of those people that passes me on the throughway with something to read in front of them. It's bad enough when you're doing this and you're trying to drive at the same time. Incidentally, I'm behind you saying to the person who's in the car with me, well, they're either really drunk or they're texting. And then I'm watching your head bob and I'm going, okay, they're texting. It is very noticeable. And so when you've got your focus split like that, it's pretty noticeable to everybody else. I'm amazed we don't have more people just wandering, into accidents that way. I will mention that when I started out in college for years, is that I used to, lie down on my elbow and study that way until the little voice in my head went, you're going to sleep a lot. And then move into a desk situation, it turned out to work a lot better for me. So as I said, the way that you do it all the time isn't necessarily the way that suits you the best. The next question is sound. Is that, do you need it completely quiet in order to really focus on what you're doing? And I know that's tricky, especially if you're working from home and you have a home situation with other people, that it may not be that possible. You may need background noise. A lot of people that need background noise need some specific kind of background noise. And if you do, go for it, as long as other people are not throwing things at you. I went out with a girl many years ago who ran a hairdryer when she studied. And it was kind of a white noise machine, and it blocked out everything else, and it really helped her to focus. So, whatever kind of noise or non-noise that you need, if you can do it and not drive people crazy, that works fine. Now I'm flipping over to this next page, and keep in mind, there's no right or wrong answers to this. This is really what works for you. But the second page, more than the first page, your answer may involve, well, it depends on what I'm actually studying for. And that's perfectly okay. This is a whole part, is just to get you thinking about setting your environment to do your best job. So you got a whole bunch of stuff to go through for this exam, this hypothetical exam that we're doing. My question is, when you're actually going to sit down to do it, how planned are you? When you sit down, do you know, I'm going to do this, 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 and this, I'm going to use roughly this amount of time on this and this amount of time on that? You got a really good set plan when you sit down. Or have you kind of sort of thought about it, but not really that well thought out, and then you sit down? Or are you, and this is the way I work, you just grab all of your stuff and you just sit down and you just start. I'm the sort of person that for me, that makes me, is like study. Oh crap, I need that. I'm gonna go get something else and bring it back, because since I haven't really planned it out, I don't always grab everything that I need. The other part of this question is, so you're taking a class and you got an exam 4 weeks from now. Do you review the material as you go along? Take a look at your notes, maybe at the end of the day, maybe at the end of the week. So you're kind of mini studying as you go along. And you're gonna study at the end, but you've got a lot of it kind of already in your head before that major studying session at the end. Or do you just kind of coast along, and then the night before the exam, you go into the bathroom and you grab a plunger and you try to jam all the information in overnight as quickly as you can. I will admit that tends to be the way that I study. And for those of us that do it that way, we probably do believe we'd be better off if we did it the other way. But who knows? In my case, as I've gotten old, the information would tend to dribble out my ears if I did it gradually. It's better to kind of shove it in there and go, I hope it lasts long enough to get through this test. And again, as I said in my video on what college does for you, that ability to jam a bunch of important information kind of temporarily into your head seems very, very classroomy, but there are situations in the real world where you need that, where you got to be, completely up on this sort of building material or that sort of government document, or whatever it is that your company wants you to know. But they're not gonna, it's not something you're gonna do over and over and over again. You just need to know it for like a week or two. You got a bunch of stuff to go through. You got the book, you got the notes, you got the handouts, whatever you got. Now the next question has to do with your process. Do you do the book and get it over with? Do the notes and get it over with? Basically stay on one source, do everything you need from that source, and then go to another source. Or do you do a little bit of this and then go back over here and then go back over here and bounce around? It's a very different approach and very particular to different people. So think about that. How you plan is related to that as well. We are circadian animals. We have rhythms that run through the day, and your brain is tapped into that. So if you think about it, you'll realize there are times of the day where I'm a little sharper, and times of the day when I'm maybe not so sharp. And so the question is, are you a morning person, middle of the day person, afternoon, evening, late at night person? And if you know that about yourself, you may not be able to affect a class exam, but your studying can be done to kind of reflect those sharper times of the day. And then the question is, when you are studying, do you want to be where you can see a clock? Is it, if you're a planner, you probably want, look at your phone, look at a clock, whatever, follow the time, since you've got some rough idea of your process and the timing. I'm not a planner, and I actually would prefer to be studying where I can't see the clock. I figure the sun comes up, okay, it's probably time to get ready for class. I have, on some occasions, gone to the trouble of walking across the room and turning your clock around so that I can't see it while I'm studying. So I'm a kind of an extreme example of that. Question is, do you commonly feed your face while you're feeding your brain? And as I always tell my classes, I have bad news for you. There is a reason why that's a good idea. It's bad for your diet. But when you put food into your stomach, this is where your stomach is, and your stomach starts to churn, starts to work the food, it sends a bunch of hormones over to your pancreas, basically to go, this is the food we're sending down, send the right enzymes in to break it down. But it also sends a couple of enzymes up to the memory centers of your brain. And it tweaks them very subtly. There's not a huge effect here, but there is a measurable effect on your memory activity. Probably because our ancestors, food was an uncertain thing. You had to find it. You still very often had to kill it or harvest it or dig it up. And for the act of eating to reinforce in your brain, it's so later maybe, this is where we found that, or this is where we hit the big animal so that it fell over more easily, is that this reinforcement of your stomach acting to your memory makes some evolutionary sense. It's related to that. When you raise your blood sugar levels, your insulin controls it to some extent, but everybody knows if you get enough sugar in you, it kind of pumps you up. And if you're somebody who pumped up on sugar kind of goes, and this is not really a good piece of advice I'm going to give you. But if you get a little bit hyped, that gets hyped too. People have been measured to perform better on tests with their blood sugar elevated. It doesn't last very long. If you're taking like an hour and a half test, it can have a noticeable improvement effect. But if it's longer than that, about an hour and a half in, you kind of crash as your body tries to restabilize the sugar levels. And then you want to stop taking the test and take a nap. That's not so good. And that's why it's not that great for studying either. It's more for test taking than for studying. But it's good to know. It was an incredibly well-designed study. And the last question that I'm going to kind of prime you for is, do you need to know the format of the exam that you're studying for? And the answer is yes, because you're going to study differently for a true-false exam than an essay exam. Now, my classic exams, which I'm still hoping we can have, but we'll find out, my classic exams are a third of it is multiple choice, a third of it is short answer, which tends to blow people's heads up because you don't get asked those kinds of questions anymore in the lower levels. And a third of it is long answer, which tends to be lists. And then some bonus questions. So different people are better suited to different parts. If we're still doing this remotely and I have to send an exam out to you, then it's a take-home scavenger hunt exam where you get to find the information. That's my information that I know the particular answer to. So you're gonna have to hunt through our information to find it, because if you go out on the internet, I'll tell you something about the internet. Basic biology stuff, not out on the internet particularly. Complex, high-level, advanced biology stuff's out there. So if I ask you a question and you go hunting on the internet when I've told you specifically don't do that, you'll give me an answer that I know you don't understand because you found it from one of those advanced systems. It's easier just to look through our stuff, including my book, which is on the internet. And then you just got two questions that you're gonna do on your own. You know, the first question is, you know, how does the way you generally do this maybe not fit the way you just figured out works? What could you change? And what is this kind of typical classroom environment? What suits you, what doesn't suit you in a typical classroom environment? Let me see where we are. Okay, I'm gonna stop this and pick up we'll do part 5 and 6 together on another video.